Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make dark electro like Helena Hauff. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and all that stuff from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get going. So, this loop here in the intro, we're at 125 BPM. The first sound we have here is the 303, which sounds like this. So with this one, notes are very simple. It's just playing G sharp, just kind of droning on that. I was trying to make one of those kind of like droning sort of, I guess I could say like chirpy 808s. Like she uses a lot. Basically, it's all about this really high resonance. So what we have here is we have two saw waves going into a low pass filter. The low pass filter, the frequency is being automated over the course of this little loop here. And then, yeah, like I said, it's a really high resonance. That's how we get that kind of sound. If I turn that down. So yeah, and then I have a little bit of an envelope on that as well. We got the amp envelope set like this, and that is it for inside of analog. After that, I just have a bit of saturation and a bit of drum bus. These both are fattening the sound up, and it's also just taking it and bringing out that filter a lot more as well. Like if I turn these off, you can hear. The resonance isn't as pronounced. When we turn these on, there we go. It's a lot more in your face, and it's a lot fatter as well. And then the last thing we have on there is just an EQ8 cutting out the low end. This sound, you know, it can tend to have a bit, as you can hear, a bit of low end. So yeah, just kind of cleaning that out, making room for the kick. And that is it for the 303. The next sound that we have here is the pad, which sounds like this. So here are the notes on this one. This is also pretty much just journeying. It's just playing this G minor chord. Again, G minor is the key that we're in. G sharp minor, I mean to say. And you can see that it just has these notes on top. Honestly, not the darkest sounding notes, but that's kind of the point here. We have like this sad sounding minor chord, and then this like pretty major sounding melody playing over it. It's really simple. And yeah, it's kind of the vibe there. For the sound on this one, this is also made using analog. Analog is very good for the synths and the style. You can see with this one, we have a saw wave and a square wave. They're detuned a little bit. On the square wave, I have the pulse width being modulated using this LFO here. So it's just kind of like, if I turn off the filter, you can hear it a little bit more. There you go. Gives you that old school kind of electro synth sound. Then I have those going into a low pass filter, which you can see is set like this. I've got a little bit of an LFO on that as well, so it's kind of nice having the two different LFOs moving in this track. Like we could even have them like that, where it's like, you know, you have two different LFOs moving at two different times, and it gives the sound a lot of movement. After that, I've got the amp envelope set like this, and then we just have a bit of vibrato as well as a bit of unison to kind of make it just bigger and more like chorusy. If I turn that off, actually, you can hear the unison. It's not quite the same without it. That definitely helps for getting the kind of like old school synth sound. And then after that, we just have a bit of chorus, making the sound a bit wider, kind of spreading it out. And then the last thing on that is just a bit of reverb, and that is it for the pad. The next sound that we have here is this little lead, which sounds like this. So this one, you can see it's just playing this thing in the key of G sharp minor. It's just following notes from the G sharp minor scale. Like we have B, which is the minor third. We got C sharp. We've got F sharp up there, a minor seventh. It's just notes from another F sharp down here. It's just notes from that scale pretty much. It's not really too complicated. This is meant to just be something really simple and kind of chill. It's not meant to be like all over the place or super in your face like a lot of other leads. This is meant to just kind of be like a cold, dark synth in the background a little. For the sound on this one, it's made using analog. This one is a saw wave and a square wave. You can see I've got the square wave an octave up, and I've got that detuned a little. Then I've got this going into a low pass filter, and the low pass filter is key tracked. So if you listen to this, hear how that high note there sounds a bit brighter than the other ones? This is what key tracking is. Basically, key tracking is like, think of it like when you play a low note on your keyboard, it plays a low note, and when you play a high note, it plays a high note. That's key tracking. It's basically wherever you are on the keyboard, in this case, the filter frequency will match that. So here, kind of a cool way to breathe some life into a synth, because without this you can hear it's the same melody, but it's not as, like, I feel like it's just not as exciting. Then we got the amp envelope set like this, and then I have a bit of vibrato as well as a bit of unison. So here's without the unison. You can hear this one really doesn't have like that same feel to it that it does with the unison. It definitely needs that detune. The only effect I have on there is just a bit of chorus. And there's some master processing that is making stuff like this kind of stick out a bit more. But yeah, that is it for the lead. The next sound that we have here is this kick, which sounds like this. So this one is really more about the type of sound. In this case, it's all about getting this big, fat 808 style kick. You can hear this one is in tune as well with the key of the track. But yeah, so it's just all about, like I said, the type of sound you choose. You just gotta make sure you get the right 808. Like, you don't want it to be too soft or too hard. You kind of want it to be in the middle like this, where it's got a very fat and warm punch to it. But you can still add distortion to it, and it won't be too much. So yeah, I'll show you. Here is without any of this processing that's just on the individual track. So you can hear that sounds a lot more like a standard 808 kick. And then we've got to go in through a saturator. And then into the drum bus. And there you go. That's how you get that big, boomy, sort of like kick, where it's a kick, but it's also a bass. That's kind of the idea with that. After that, we have this tambourine, which sounds like this. This one's really simple. It's just a little tambourine sample. This is playing with the rest of the percussion. And yeah, you can hear it. It's just one of those little like drum machine style sounds that's very pronounced and fits really well into a mix like this. It's like we have a lot of different types of percussion. We have this, which is the tambourine. Then we have like a clap and snare. And then all these hi-hats and stuff. Like, it's just a lot of different stuff instead of just like one style of percussion. So yeah, then the next thing here is this drum rack with the hi-hats. And it's also got that little percussion sound in here. So these are, yeah, just two hi-hats. And then I've got the percussion. And then with the hi-hats, the main thing here is the way you can hear, like when I play the open hi-hat, and then I play the closed one right after, you can hear it. Here the open one stops when the closed one plays. This is because of this choke here. Basically, you set the choke to 1. The way you open this is by clicking on this I/O here on the instrument rack. But yeah, once you do that, it opens up this choke. And basically what that says is once you set it to 1, it just makes it so that whenever one sound is playing, the other one will stop. So there you go. That's how you get that effect. Because otherwise, if we just have this playing out the whole way through, you can hear. It's kind of messy, but this way keeps it really tight and clean sounding. So yeah, and then we also have the snare, which sounds like this. So this is 2 layers. We have a clap. You can hear what that's doing, and then we have a snare. You can also hear what that's doing. So the snare is more for like that punchy kind of mid-range / low mid-range, and then the clap is giving it the crackiness on top. Like either one of these on their own wouldn't quite be enough. there you go. And then I have those inside of a group. Just got a little bit of saturation on that to tie them together. Here's without that. And with it. I also have all the percussion I just showed you, the tambourine and that drum rack and the snare in their own group. And then those are also inside another group. But yeah, this is just got a little bit of saturation and a bit of overdrive on it. Here's without those. And then with them. So you can hear, yeah, it's just using the saturation to really bring these sounds out. Kind of make it all feel like one. Like, this makes everything feel very together and very tight. And I'll say this more when I show you the group that this is all inside of in a second. But yeah, like, grouping these drums together is a really great way to get these kind of textures. And these kind of drums where it doesn't just sound like a bunch of sounds playing at separate, kind of like in separate places. It really sounds like everything is being crunched together. So then I have those drums inside of a group with the kick. And this just has a little bit of processing on it, but it just does that last little bit to fatten everything up and make it sound really full and powerful and together. Here's without the processing. And then with it. So you can pretty much hear what's going on there. Without it, it's just, it's like it's got the power, but it's not quite together enough. It doesn't really sound like one drum machine. It sounds like a bunch of different drum sounds. But then when we add this drum bus here, it just gives it that extra bit of oomph. So with this, I'm using pretty much everything. Got the drive up a bit, got the crunch up a bit as well. I've got the damp down. I noticed that Helena Hauff's drums, when I was listening to her tracks, for reference, they tend to be very dark. And it's not even so much about just like low passing it or anything like that, but just turning down the damp on the drum bus. You can hear, like, here's with it all the way up. It's very bright. It doesn't really have that same texture versus when we turn it down. It still has the brightness to it and the crunch, but it's not as like in your face. Like, it's a little bit more soft while still being distorted, if that makes any sense. I also got the transients up, kind of like compressing it a little, and then we've got this boom here, and I have that tuned to G sharp. And yeah, then the only other thing to talk about with this one is the master processing. I have a bit of saturation on the master. I've done this in a few videos recently. This is pretty essential for this style because this style is meant to sound like it's all going through like a cassette deck or like a, you know, like an analog tape or something like that. Like, it just has this very analog kind of warm characteristic to it. And part of that is everything kind of being crunched together. And the only way you really get that is by putting some saturation on the master. So here's without this, and then I'll turn it on. So there you go. You can hear it without it. It still sounds pretty clear. It sounds pretty good, pretty together. But then when we add it, everything's getting crunched a little bit off of that 808. And hear everything really having that same kind of crispy, crunchy texture on top of it as well. I've got the drive up a little bit, and then I've got the bass frequency up. This is what really does that crunchiness. If I turn it off, so yeah, there you go. Like I said, the master processing, definitely important. Like, if you overlook that, that's the kind of the thing that I feel like a lot of times when people are having a hard time getting this type of sound, that's why, is because they're overlooking processing everything together. So that's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the project file and samples of MIDI and presets and all of that from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.